Hello, everybody. It's Philip Lee returning with another episode of Civil War Chat. Today is Tuesday, the 30th of March, and today I want to talk about Ulysses Grant's corrupted presidency. But first, uh, click on the subscription notification button below here and the notification bell in the upper right to subscribe and be notified of future episodes of Civil War Chat. Okay, so let me begin now. Yesterday's discussion about the political Ulysses Grant disclosed his black voting and civil rights activism to be self-serving. It targeted the single minority group, the solitary minority group that could be manipulated to keep Republicans in power by way of puppet carpetbag regimes in the South. He did nothing for other ethnic minorities such as Native Americans and Chinese Americans and even white immigrants such as the Irish. Grant even spent more money authorized by the Ku Klux Klan Enforcement Acts for so-called supervision of elections in the North than he did in the South. That was because white immigrants in the populous northern cities tended to vote for Democrats. He and fellow Republicans progressively abandoned Southern blacks as organically Republican states entered the Union, beginning with Kansas in 1861 and ending with Utah in 1896, the first 11 states to join the Union after the start of the Civil War. Each added 2 new Republicans to the Senate. Beyond its hidden racism, Grant's presidency was notoriously corrupt. During his 8 years in the White House, the president's cabinet seats consisted of 6 secretaries and an attorney general. 4 resigned for connections to various corruption scandals. The initial vice president was booted from Grant's reelection ticket for accepting bribes in connection with the Union Pacific Railroad, which was receiving massive federal subsidies at the time. His personal secretary was charged with leading a group of Treasury agents. This is Grant's personal secretary, was leading a group of Treasury agents who were accepting bribes to enable distillers to evade excise taxes. Although not convicted, after a trial, Grant gave the secretary a job of inspecting remote lighthouses where he could keep him on the payroll and his mouth shut, but where he really wouldn't see anybody and he would be out of the flow of influence. Similarly, Grant's Navy secretary avoided formal charges for sharing in the excess profits of a Navy Department supplier, but the wealth he acquired while he was in office made the public skeptical of his avowals about innocence. Although Grant apologists often assert he was personally honest and merely naive in his choice of advisors, the claim ignores or minimizes 2 points. First, he and his wife tended to regard the presidency and a regal lifestyle as an entitlement for his role in winning the Civil War. Since they considered his salary to be too small, he would often reward financial benefactors or reciprocate such benefactors with coveted government appointments. Second, significant evidence suggests that he may have been directly involved in the distillery tax evasion scheme. His brother-in-law was involved in the gold corner scandal of September 1869. Regarding the first point, between 1865 and 1869 inclusive, donors bought or gave him enough money to buy a total of 4 homes in Galena, Illinois, Philadelphia, Washington, and Long Branch, New Jersey. One of the 7 donors for the president's 27-room Long Branch, quote, cottage, close quote, was Tom Murphy, a notorious supplier of shoddy merchandise to the Union Army during the Civil War. Grant appointed Murphy as customs collector for the Port of New York, where 3/4 of America's tariffs were paid. It was the most lucrative patronage assignment available in the federal government. Money tended to stick to the fingers of the port's tax collectors and the administrators in a host of ways. Similarly, Grant assigned General Daniel Butterfield to New York's sub-treasury office in exchange for Butterfield's role in raising a fund enabling General William T. Sherman to buy Grant's Washington home shortly before Grant moved into the White House. Since the money was a Grant-arranged windfall for Sherman, the latter agreed to pay Grant a price that was more than double the amount the the price the president-elect had paid only 3 years earlier. Soon after his appointment, Butterfield took a bribe to join Jay Gould's attempted corner of the gold market in September 1869. And one of Grant's brother-in-laws joined along, a guy living in Manhattan. The year before Grant became president, Henry Cook of the Seneca Sandstone Company sold shares to influential Republicans at half price. He planned to profit by supplying building materials to contractors in the District of Columbia. Seneca Sandstone was in Maryland, located in Maryland near Washington, D.C. After Republicans controlled both the White House and Congress, Cook reasoned that they would endorse a modernization program that would elevate the status of our nation's capital, which had grown more like a weed than a tended garden during the 1860s. So there was a lot of work that could be done there, modern buildings and that sort of thing. And there would be a temporary financial boom in Washington, D.C. for that very reason. Among the buyers of the stock was General Ulysses Grant, whose stock was valued at $20,000. Now keep in mind, he typically got it at half price. The president sold the shares. He sold those shares 4 years later, 6 months after appointing Henry Cook as DC's territorial governor. Obviously, Cook can influence building contracts in that position. Henry's brother was Jay Cook, an investment banker. In fact, it was the largest investment bank at the time. And he had also been Grant's largest political contributor for the president's 1872 re-election campaign. Grant was having breakfast at Jay's Philadelphia mansion the very morning that Jay Cook and Company Investment Bank failed, triggering a financial panic and a 4-year economic depression. Jay Cook and Company was chiefly capitalized with securities of the Northern Pacific Railroad, including federal subsidy bonds. After it emerged from bankruptcy, the Northern Pacific eventually collected federal land grants equal or aggregating the size of the state of Missouri. Regarding the second point concerning possibilities that President Grant was personally corrupted, consider the whiskey ring scandal. The episode enabled distillers to evade about 2/3 of the taxes they owed in exchange for bribes and campaign donations. It ended only because Grant felt compelled to appoint reform-minded Benjamin Bristow as Treasury Secretary 2 years into the president's second term, because Bristow's predecessor had resigned in disgrace for unrelated tax collection improprieties. Ultimately, Bristow's investigation led to Grant's personal secretary, Orville Babcock, who was indicted as a leading ring participant involving hundreds of lower status members. Regarding Babcock's White House status, General of the Army William T. Sherman once said, quote, "Those who go to see the president see Babcock first. He is a kind of intermediary between the people and the president." Grant responded to the accusations against Babcock as follows. Since Babcock was an Army officer as well as a personal secretary, Grant tried to get the investigation shifted to the Army. The president even went so far as to blame the Babcock-friendly judge, name a Babcock-friendly judge advocate who was a military prosecutor, as well as the equally Grant-pliable officers for the tribunal. Those would be the judges. The Justice Department prosecutor blocked that move by correctly replying that he could not send his evidence to a distant military tribunal because it was illegal to remove evidence from the court of jurisdiction. Next, Grant hired a spy at taxpayer expense to infiltrate the prosecutor's office and to report everything he learned. The spy, however, eventually sided with the prosecutors after Babcock told him to destroy all the evidence he could find. After an assistant prosecutor suggested in his jury summation that the president had usurped Bristow's authority when he blocked the secretary's order to replace a Treasury employee suspected of being a member of the conspiracy, Grant instructed the Attorney General to fire that assistant. After Babcock's indictment, President Grant directed that his Attorney General no longer permit the prosecution team to arrange plea bargains with low-level or lower-level participants in exchange for testimony against those higher up in the food chain. Such plea bargains are common, but he would not permit them. After one of the convicted Treasury clerks was replaced, his replacement wrote future Supreme Court Justice John Harlan 2 days before Babcock's trial began, quote, "What has hurt Bristow, the Treasury Secretary, worst of all and most disheartened him is the final conviction that Grant himself is in the ring and knows all about it," close quote. If Grant was not guilty, he certainly acted a lot like Richard Nixon, or like Nixon might have acted. First, he hired a spy to infiltrate the prosecution office, much like Nixon's plumbers. Second, he fired a prosecuting attorney for citing facts unfavorable to the president, which was similar to Nixon's Saturday Night Massacre. Third, he ordered his attorney general to cease plea bargains because they would make higher level government employees more vulnerable to conviction. While I don't believe that Grant's statues should be torn down, those among the cultural elite who consider themselves to be paragons of morality may want to reconsider their condemnation of Confederate statues. So that's what I have to say about Grant's personally corrupted presidency. But what I'd like to do, for those of you who want to learn more, get U.S. Grant's Failed Presidency. I wrote this book. You can get it for $20 at Barnes & Noble or at Amazon, any fine bookstore. If you want an autographed copy directly from me, email me. It'll be $25. And if you're here in the United States, I will deliver it free of charge, $25 total price. But email me, Phil, P-H-I-L _Leigh, L-E-I-G-H @ me.com. Okay, that's our show for today, and thanks for watching.